Okay, so I made a blank. Oops, I spelled feature F-E-A, feature, feature F-E-A-T-U-R-E, feature. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the transform feature in Dreamweaver. And just like I was writing on the board, the transform feature uses CSS. So you apply the transform functions or features to a CSS of some kind. And most CSS we apply to what? Like a div tag, right? You make a div tag, you apply some CSS to a div tag. So the features that are in the transform are usually, you need to choose something to do it to, and mostly you can do that to a CSS. So I'm going to make a div tag and then apply some CSS to the div tag, and then we'll apply the transform to the div tag, right? So again, make a div tag. I'm just going to make a box, give it a name, apply some CSS to it, and then use the transform to alter the CSS. Use the transform to alter the CSS. So here we go. So I go under Insert Div. I'm going to make a div tag. You can use a class. We can call it or an ID. I think either one will work. This is going to be main box, whatever. I'm just going to call it main box. Remember, no spaces in a class name. No spaces. You could do this. You could do this to a compound also. You can do a transform to a compound and all that stuff. And most of the people use the transform features for effects that you can do to a menu item. I think one of the downfalls this semester is I did not show enough of how to make cool menus and things like that. So a lot of menus, if you notice on websites when you're rolling over and they might have a menu that pops up and kind of grows, or maybe one that fades up. You ever notice menus that kind of fade on, right, or fade off? That would be something you could do in the transform feature, something like that. So again, I just made a box called main box, and let's give it some CSS. I'm going to give it some CSS. So again, I'm going to go to my CSS designer window. So I made a box. Go to my CSS designer window. First option is I'm going to say to define in page, and I'm not worried about external CSS at this point. Then down here at the selector, I'm going to give my CSS some options. In this case, I called it dot main box, I think is what I called it, right? That's the name of my box. Click off and on. And let's give it a little bit of a width. I'm going to give it, let's say, 500 width, or maybe 400. 400 width. And let's give it a height. I'm going to give it a height of, how about 200? And then the most important thing, well, in the video I was watching, they were saying that the height didn't quite work with all of the features of, remember the different, the WebKit, the Moz, and all those stuff. So in the example I was watching, they used max height. So maybe let's not do the height here. Let's change the max height to 200. At least that was their, oops. So I made a box. And then the other thing they did was the display, or not display, we want the overflow. Where's overflow? Overflow. What's up and down, X or Y?
Y.
Is across.
Y is down?
Down.
X is on the horizontal, Y is on the
Okay.
vertical.
So overflow hidden is the most important thing. Overflow hidden. So in this case, I'm going to make a box. Oh, maybe give it a color. Let me give it a color too. In fact, in order to see it, okay, so, oh, that's text color. I didn't want that. I wanted background color. Hold on, let me adjust that. Background color. So I made a box. I made some white text, gave it a background color. Maybe I will give it a height so we can see it, but I swear they said the max height was the important one. Max, or was it min height? Minimum height. Max height, yeah. It's 200. I don't know if that'll work with that, but we'll try it. Maybe not. Let me delete that. Let's just put some text in there. So again, I'm going to type some text in there. This is a box to have a over effect. So I'm going to type in some text, random text, random text, random text, random text, random text, and then I'm going to type in West Valley College. Okay, there we go. So I have a box. If I save my box and preview it, if I can get it to work. No preview. Preview it. No. The wheels are still turning. I think it might crash. Looks like a crash. Okay, I'm trying to preview it. Okay, let me try again. There we go. So you can see I have a box with some text in it and my West Valley College text. So what I want is when the person rolls the mouse over, this is gonna grow to reveal a photo underneath it. When the person rolls the mouse out, it's going to shrink the box and hide the photo. That's the concept here, using the transform feature inside of Dreamweaver. So here we go. So again, I'm just going to put the photo in here. So I'm going to insert my photo. Insert my image. There it is. So let's save and preview again. Notice how the picture is hidden. In Dreamweaver, you see it. Why is the picture hidden? Well, it's below the 200 pixel height, right? Remember, I gave this box that you're looking at right here, and I'll go back to the CSS in a minute. I'm just wanting to make sure you understand the concept. Is that the picture that is here that you see in Dreamweaver, when you preview it, is hidden. The reason why the picture is hidden is because of the CSS. This box that I made has a maximum height of 200 pixels. And I told the overflow, right? Anything that's below, what the overflow means is anything that's below that. Here we go. So again, here's the CSS for the box. Here's the CSS for the box. I got 400 width, 200 height. I have overflow of hidden. So anything that's below what overflow means, think of the overflow is you can have a scroll bar, right? Basically, most overflow means you make a box that's a specific size. If the content in the box is bigger than the size of the box, the default is to put a scroll bar, right? To put a scroll bar. But in this case, instead of putting a scroll bar, we're telling it to be hidden. So anything that's larger than the box is hidden. It's hidden. Okay, that's what this means. Hidden. Then I just gave it some font color and then whatever the background color. So that's the setup. If you preview it, the picture is hidden. In addition, the advantage of doing things like this is stuff can move, right? Watch this. If I take and put another object, let's put another object. Oops. I need to go into code view for a moment. Okay, there's a p tag underneath there. If you put something underneath here, so if you have anything underneath here, let me just make it bigger. I got some text underneath here. Hold on. Let me make it big. There we go. So I have more stuff underneath my box here, right? See the more stuff underneath my box? Again, if I preview it and I preview it, here's my more stuff. See how it moved up? When I roll the mouse over, this will be pushed down. This will be pushed down. So again, the concept here is I'm going to roll my mouse over. This box is going to grow. This stuff will be pushed down. When I roll my mouse out, it'll shrink. Again, we're using CSS to accomplish this. CSS transform. Okay, you ready for me to try transform? Yes? So again, inside of Dreamweaver, we haven't really talked about the menu yet, so I figured it's the last week of school, we should talk about it. It's underneath Window. It's called CSS Transitions. CSS Transitions. And I don't know, you got to find the window. If it popped up somewhere, you might need to bring. Oh, there it is. Okay. Woof. Oh my.
Jeff, is this in the old
It's in CS6. I don't think it's below CS6 though. I don't know.
I have CS6, so that's okay.
Yeah, it's in CS6. Kind of looks like the behavior window, right? With the little plus, right? So if you click on the plus, the first thing it's going to ask you is, what do you want to set your transition to? And of course, we only have one thing in there. If you hit the pull down menu, you'll notice that it says main box, right? But if you had a whole bunch of CSS, they would all be in the list. So you can apply these transitions to all the CSS that you have. Then it says transition on active, check, disabled, enabled, focus, hover, intermediate, target. I don't know what all of these do. Focus is when it loads, I believe. Disabled, enabled, checked, intermediate. I'm not sure what all the. I know what hover does though. That's the important one, right? When I roll the mouse over. So I'm going to put on the hover. So again, when I roll the mouse over my box, what do I want it to do? That's the next step. What do I want it to do? Well, I want it to, and then this one says use the same transition for all properties. Use a different transition for each property. So the way I understand that is that for all the hovers, do you want this to do it, or do you want it to do it only for certain hovers? I think is what they're asking in here. So use different transition for each property. I'm going to say that. Use different transition for each property, because I don't want it to hover on every effect that I do. That's what I'm assuming. So then you say, well, what do you want it to do? So the next step is, what do you want it to do? Now you can actually, I believe, do more than one. Right now we want to make the box bigger. We want to make the box bigger. So down here where it says property, you'll notice there's a plus right here. If I click on the plus, it's going to ask me, what do I want? Do I want to change the background color, change the image in there? Remember I talked about the image, right? Maybe you roll over the image and image changes, and we can do it like a fade, I believe. So you can change the position. You can do all the things you can do in CSS, right? But we want to do the max height. Max height. Now the video I was watching said, at least the version I was using, the height didn't work, but the video I was watching was like 2 years old. So, you know, it could be different today. Height might work. But in the video I was watching, they used max height. Max height. So, max height. Duration is how fast you want it to grow. And it's measured in seconds. So if you wanted to open up for it take 1 second is a long time. 1 second is a long time. So maybe a half a second or 0.75 would be a quarter of a second, or no, 3/4 of a second, right? And then you could do milliseconds too. Second or milliseconds. Now if you're going to do milliseconds, I think it's 1,000 milliseconds in a second, right? I believe it's 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second. So if you want to do something equivalent, instead of 0.75, you do 750 milliseconds. Does that make sense? I believe it's 1,000 milliseconds in a second. And then a delay, I don't know. I think, don't know what delay is. Slow it down? No, slow it down is this one. I guess it's like a pause maybe. I don't know, let's put something in there. Let's pause for half a second. I don't know. Or I guess we could put 0 in there. No delay. I don't know. Timing function. You have cubic Bezier. You have ease in, ease in, ease out, linear. These terms come from animation, right? When you're animating something, you want it to either speed up or slow down towards the end to give it a more realistic look. Ease in, I believe, will slow down towards the in as it's going. So let's try ease in. Then the value is how big do we want the box to be? If you think about it, we had a 200 pixel box. How big do we want it to be? With this photo right here, it's got to be at least double. How about we make it 400? Oops, not 4,000. 400. 400. Maybe 420. Might be in pixels. So again, what this is when I roll my mouse over, I want it to, when I hover over the box, I want it to grow to 425 pixels, and it's going to animate. This is an animation. Transition is animation, basically. And if I hit create transition, notice how it put it on this also down here, and I couldn't figure that out. Notice how it put the hover effect and inside the CSS window. You'll notice how this is more stuff. Do you see that down there? See how it said this is? And it actually put it on there too, and I don't know why. Possibly because I have no reason why. So I'm going to kind of delete it off that. I don't know why it did that. And I'm going to hit the minus. So again, when I applied the transition, it did it both to my main box as well as my text down here, and I have no idea why it did that.
But it doesn't, if you look at the code, it doesn't add anything to the code.
So, but I don't want my text to be with this horrible brown. So I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know why it does that. I have to learn more about these transitions. Let me remove it. I'm going to remove it from that and keep it only on my box. I don't know why it does that. So if I save my option now and then preview, if I roll my mouse over, it should open up the box. When I roll off, it should close it. Open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close. Again, it's called the CSS transition. It's a very, I don't know, we can do a different example, but this one seemed pretty easy to me. Do you have it in the transition with the name right here?
Yeah, I do.
And when you double click, do you have main box, hover, max height, 420?
Yeah.
Okay, let me pause. My next sample is I wanted to show you how to do things on an angle. So not everything has to be horizontal and vertical on your website. With today's new modern CSS, you can actually have objects that are on an angle. So let me demonstrate how to do things on an angle. So I'm just going to make a new file and so I'm just going to make a div tag. It doesn't necessarily have to be a div tag. You can do it to, I believe, anything. I just want to make it a div tag so you can see it as a box as it rotates. The other thing to keep in mind is when you're rotating an object, you might need to think about where it's rotating, and there's a way to adjust the position of where the rotation is. And in addition, you can do the rotation on a rollover effect. So if you roll over something, you can have it rotate too. So let's just get something to rotate first. How about that? Something to rotate first. So I'm going to go into my div tag, and I'm just going to make a box. I'm going to call it the box. How about that as a name? The box. And we can give it some CSS characteristics. So again, all I did was make a box. I called it the box. And I gave it some, and I made a class for it, and I'm just going to give it some characteristics. I don't know, maybe give it a width. Maybe give it a height if you want. Maybe give it some color if you want. Oof, 200 is way too big. Maybe give it some color if you want. Green is for, and maybe give it some text. Maybe give it some formatting. So whatever. I made a box. I put some text in it. That's all I have so far. So I hand coded it. So let me see. Oh, I did do a reveal image example. So again, all I did was make a box, give it a name, give it some characteristics, and I want to rotate it. Let me save my file. T-A-T, rotate. How about that? So in this case, I'm going to rotate this entire box. So if I go into code view, and I'm going to do this by hand, and I go to the CSS, here's the CSS for the box, right? I got a width, I got a height, and I got a color. Now, if I go into the CSS, I can actually type by hand. There's a whole bunch of CSS you can put in there, as you can tell. And of course, one of the ones you can put in there is called transform. And then to get something to fade is the transition duration, I believe, or the no, the opacity, I think. But transform, and then to get it to rotate, I'm going to go to rotate, and then I'm going to put in a certain degree. How about we do 10 degrees? Nope, you got to put in the word degree. Nope, DEG for degree. And then a colon, semicolon. So I put in transform, colon, rotate, round bracket, minus 10 degrees. Because I want it to go this way, not that way. I want the text, because it's hard to read text going down, it's easier to read it going up. The minus would be this way. The plus, I believe, goes that way. So let's just see what it looks like. Hold on, let me see, and then I'll show you it again. Let's see if it works. There it goes. So it rotates. The example I did was an old example, the one I have on my computer here, and I used the whole WebKit transform rotate, Moz transform rotate, O transform rotate, MS transform rotate, to make sure I had covered all the browsers. I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. But let's see. So this is transform rotate. That worked in Mozilla. Let's see if it works in Safari. See, it didn't work in Safari. So we'd have to put something in there to make it work in Safari. What else do we have? We have Chrome on here somewhere maybe? Let's put Chrome in there. Chrome. No? We have Chrome on these computers? No? I can't believe we don't have Chrome on here. There's no Chrome on here? Wow. I guess not. Let me find out how to rotate. Okay. Oh, the WebKit transform works. The WebKit transform. WebKit transform will work for Safari. Okay, let's go back to the code and then I'll explain it here again. So again, I just did transform, rotate, round bracket, -10 degrees, semicolon. If we're going to get it to, for there, we're going to put dash WebKit dash transform rotate -10 DEG. Oops. So again, transform, rotate, -10 degree. WebKit transform, rotate, and then of course for at least the example I was looking at for Microsoft, it was -MS transform rotate -10 degree. Let's see if it works in Safari now. Worked in Safari. Okay, so at least what I read on the W3 said the WebKit transform rotate works in Safari. And then the MS transform rotate is supposed to be for Microsoft, I guess MS Microsoft. And then just transform rotate. So you might need to put them all in there. I know we didn't really go over the WebKit too much, I guess. But hey, you might want to have things on an angle on your browser, right? Not everything has to be horizontal or vertical. Boring. So you might want to go through and some examples I did in the past. can't remember how to get it to fade. I've seen fading. Transition property. I don't know. Okay, I don't know.